In Season 1 of Game of Thrones, we witness the evolution of Daenerys Targaryen. Through the flames of her trials, she emerges from the once used and abused young woman to the mother of dragons. But what if we told you that all is not exactly as it seems? What if Daenerys was not a journey of self-discovery, but one of luck? That out of all the titles she claims in her life, the only one that should be obvious after watching her in Season 1 is dumb.
And not just naive, but actually brain-dead stupid. Obviously, later on, Dany demonstrates some intelligence and is much more competent than her initial Hodor-esque state. As a disclaimer, not every moronic decision or comment Dany makes is due to her sheer stupidity. Her age, upbringing, and simple naivety can explain some of it, such as being constantly oblivious to Jorah's overt simp behavior.
Or fully accepting the obvious lie that a woman can make a dude shoot fat ropes simply by looking at him. But rest assured, contrary to the conventional wisdom, the vast majority of her missteps are indeed because she is a dumb brainlet.
Sit back as we pick through Season 1 and expose Daenerys Stormborn for the half-wit she is.
And also explain why this line,
"He was no dragon. Fire cannot kill a dragon,"
may be the dumbest in all of Game of Thrones. If you've been looking for a quick excuse to paint the walls with your own brain, rewatch Daenerys in Episode 8. At this point, she has fully embraced and embodied the role of Khaleesi. We watch as she slowly stumbles through a village as it is being brutally pillaged by her Dothraki screamers, which she learns is actually a fundraiser for her Make-A-Wish Foundation request to take back Westeros. Seemingly all of the men are slaughtered, and the women taken as reusable wholes, all in Dany's honor. Instead of being grateful for the Dothraki's hard work, she exhibits a visceral reaction to the looting, the enslavement, and of all things, the graping.
Apparently disgusted by what she's seen, she orders her men to halt the taking of their rightful prizes. Jorah attempts to steer her away from this path, but logic and reason seems to have no effect on Dany. This is dumb for multiple reasons. If this was the first episode of the season, it would do an excellent job convincing us that this is the first time she's experiencing all these things. We would probably think that her time with the Dothraki thus far has been short, and that their roughhousing with these innocent villagers simply hasn't come up yet. Or perhaps she's being maliciously deceived, that the true barbaric nature of her tribe has been carefully hidden from her until this moment.
However, in the true Episode 1, Daenerys not only witnesses two men fight to the death over who can grape an at best mid-woman, maybe a 5. She also experienced her own cheeks being involuntarily clapped by Khal Drogo that very same day. Narratively, this was an extremely significant day, which is why we were graced with these scenes to begin with. But just imagine how many times this has happened in her presence on less significant occasions that were not necessary to show us on screen. Bottom line, dummy full of Dothraki cummy should know exactly what grape looks like from a third-person point of view, as well as experiencing it firsthand. So why, then, is she so surprised to see it in this moment?
But even if she's never witnessed or experienced it, there's still no excuse for her to be surprised at this point. She has been exposed to the Dothraki culture for long enough to understand them. We witnessed Dany go on that typical girlfriend chameleon arc, where she likes everything you like, starts wearing your clothes, even though she has nicer and cleaner clothes to wear. Some call it Stockholm Syndrome, we call it literally every girl ever. And though at first she seems hesitant and naive to the customs, she goes from gagging on horse jerky to deep-throating a whole horse heart on stage to prove herself. After living with them for months, she speaks their language, smells like them, and claims her son will be the prophesied stallion that mounts the world.
For anyone to think at this point that Dany does not fully understand what the Dothraki are all about, have to be about as dumb as her. Khal Drogo, her actual husband, states loudly and proudly that he is going to grape the women of Westeros when the Dothraki come and claim the Iron Throne for Dany. And what does Dummy say in response? Oh yeah, nothing. She just sat there with Krispy Kreme eyes, listening to her inner mosquito buzzing sound. She has to have such a severe lack of brain that she is on a months-long delay with situation recognition, not processing the grape that she experienced herself and witnessed for what they were until this moment, despite happening in Episode 1. It's like she just woke up in the middle of the action, but didn't want anybody to know that she was sleeping, so she has to overcompensate by being really involved in whatever is happening to convince everyone around her that she's been paying attention the whole time.
As a result of her altruistic move to save these women, Drogo is injured fighting. And even though this cut undoubtedly would turn out to be a badass looking scar, Dany insists that this should be treated. And she knows the perfect person for the job. The Wicked Witch the Thick, Mary Mazdur. Using blood magic, the witch effectively kills Dany's unborn child and essentially turns Drogo into the first Dothraki fuckdoll. This is possibly the first one that's ever been. Let's know down in the comments if you think the Wicked Witch was wrong for doing this and deserved a brutal death just as Dany thought. That way, we can easily determine exactly who to block from our channel.
This woman witnessed every male she knows be murdered in cold blood under the command of Drogo and Dummer. Drogo even clearly had no issue with the graping of the women. But when Dany decided to feign a moral line in the sand and protect Milky Mazderp and the rest of the village women from being raped, that's supposed to make them even Stevens? Are you kidding me? If we are to understand Dany's thought process here, or try to, Step 1. Perform home invasion, killing the whole family except the mother. Step 2. Prevent her from being raped and offer her a role essentially as your slave. Step 3. The new slave saves the life of the dude who organized the killing party? What? As stated earlier, there are some moments on Daenerys' journey that can be fully attributed to her just being culturally naive, brutally expressing her dissatisfaction with the horse jerky, for example. But in this instance, where she first abolishes graping, and then promotes Mary Mazder to her lead medic, despite being thoroughly warned against it, and having plenty of life experience at this point to know better, there is no excuse.
Jon Snow and Dany are roughly the same age, but act entirely differently when faced with similar challenges. When Jon learns of his father's death and considers the circumstances of it, his emotions briefly take over, and he attempts to leave the Night's Watch and break the sacred vows he just made. But before he can get away, he is quickly brought back to reason by his cool new hot brothers. Jon has known Ned his whole life and loves him more than anything. Dany has known Drogo for a couple months. We would never say acting emotionally and not taking any sort of logical perspective before acting is a trait of a woman. Saying something like that would give Dany an excuse, sidestepping her being a brain-dead idiot.
Another set of examples stem from her very nature. As one of the only remaining members of the legendary Targaryen family, Daenerys should be quite privy to both the legitimate characteristics of their bloodline as well as the mythical feats. Not only is she constantly being bombarded with over-the-top lore by her brother, we as the viewer bear witness to her own exploitation of her supposed Targaryen powers, resistance to heat being the main thing. That, along with Viserys' dragon persona, are the origin points of Dany's stupidity here. Viserys is constantly referring to himself as a dragon, which is apparently a common saying for the apex Targaryen at any given time. This is backed up by Jorah's comment referring to certified load dropper Rhaegar as the last dragon. It also seems to be common knowledge, or at the very least common legend, that fire cannot harm a dragon. Given all context though, there is absolutely no evidence that this statement refers to the metaphorical dragons that are certain members of the Targaryen family. Without a doubt, this refers exclusively to the actual mythical creatures.
When Viserys is so graciously gifted a golden crown by the other resident brainlet in the tent, called Drogo, Dany appears to have a revelation. With drool running down her chin and her yearly short-bus passport in hand, she states,
Fire cannot kill a dragon.
But how can she say this with any sort of intention? We know that Targaryens do have somewhat superhuman abilities, like prophetic dreams, inherent connection to dragons, and an insatiable hunger for incest. But it's all very vague in the way they describe it, without any solid evidence. The Starks are referred to as wolves the same way Targaryens are dragons, but no one believes the Starks to possess some sort of legitimate wolfish powers based on that association. Only someone as stupid as Daenerys Targaryen would believe something like that. And given that she did, is the standard that only Targaryen males are to be considered dragons?
This may be the case, but if so, it would have to be an in-name only sort of thing, because what then does she make of her own heat-resisting abilities? We see her casually dip into a near boiling hot bath, in spite of the warning she received from her poor handler. We also see her casually handle one of her eggs that has been roasting on a fire, consequence-free, yet it burns her prosty slave on contact. Knowing she possesses this trait, and knowing she believes fire immunity to be the defining trait of Targaryen dragons, why has she never believed herself to be a dragon? Perhaps she believes that it needs to specifically be a resistance to fire and not heat overall? This has some legitimacy, as she presumably has never had to withstand massive fire prior to Khal Drogo's funeral pyre, and heat does not necessarily mean fire. Problem here is that Viserys was killed by molten gold, not fire, and she still made that stupid-ass comment as if she just learned something. Does Daenerys think that gold, when heated, is fire? If so, why does she not feel the same about heated water?
A statement from George R. R. Martin explains that Dany's fire immunity originates from blood magic and is a coincidental, isolated incident. The statement is technically referring specifically to the novel version of Dummy, which is a slightly different character, but the series does nothing to contradict her exclusive access to the ability. It just broadens it and makes the ability inherent to her as a person. Because of this, and the fact that no known opposing evidence exists, we can safely assume that there is no recorded history of Targaryens withstanding heat or fire. There are even examples in recent history to the contrary, such as the tragedy of Summerhall, where Aegon V attempts to hatch dragon eggs with fire. He and many others burn to the death as a result. Targaryens also cremate their dead, including members that they would likely have been referred to as dragons. Rhaegar Targaryen himself was cremated after his death, yet his body burned like the little bitch he was. For some unknown reason, only Daenerys Slowborn, the unlearned, zero of brains, possesses this ability.
Daenerys' naughty little shit-brain tendencies on this topic reach their apex at Khal Drogo's funeral, when she dons her classic mouth-breathing stoicism and takes a casual stroll into the burning pyre. Why the frick would she do this? There are two options, and both are equally stupid. Firstly, if she were trying to kill herself, why would she see this fire method as a viable option? For her to arrive at this conclusion would require that she still be unaware of her heat resistance, or think that her heat resistance has some sort of limit that stops at fire, melted gold, etc. Secondly, if she has accepted her identity as the new dragon, since her brothers are now dead, and if seeing Viserys die in the way he did made her reflect on her own heat resistance according to her ambiguous superstitious logic, why would she be walking into a fire at all? For fun? A look what I can do sort of flex. We're all super impressed, Dany. Why don't you show us how long you can keep a plastic bag over your head next? These are the only logical conclusions we can reach watching the HBO series alone. She is just performing random actions and seeing what happens as a result. Regarding the funeral pyre, in the book universe, we actually get a clearer answer.
Dany's lips parted and she found herself holding her breath. Part of her wanted to go to him as Ser Jorah had feared, to rush into the flames to beg for his forgiveness and take him inside her one last time. The fire melting the flesh from their bones until they were as one, forever.
Yes, that's right. Dummy wanted to go into the fire to fuck Khal Drogo's dead body until her body was also dead, possibly even deader, which just confirms she has no idea that the fire will not affect her here. She ventures in on these grounds, but hesitates on the very edge of the flames and does not actually enter the core of the pyre until she hears the extremely loud cracking of eggs, signaling that the dragon eggs are hatching. This is why we do not believe this is an explanation that can carry over into the series version of Daenerys. In the series, there is no hesitation, seemingly no lust, and absolutely no emotion or aware of the dragon eggs hatching. Despite claiming that fire cannot kill a dragon, Dany's actions here shows that she might not have any freaking idea what a fire even is. For Daenerys Targaryen, flame retardancy and mental retardancy apparently go hand in hand.
No one has ever claimed that Daenerys was one of the great thinkers in Game of Thrones. However, too many people have outright ignored her idiotic behavior. The journey she takes in Season 1 is closer to a Mr. Magoo adventure than a hero's journey. Through an uncanny streak of luck, the situation worked itself out for her. By the grace of the Seven, she is saved from her crippling stupidity.
Though we have clearly shown why Dany might be the dumbest character in Season 1 of Game of Thrones, we have not shown how Dany goes from drooling daughter of the Mad King into a competent leader, and then eventually into the Mad Queen herself, destroying the very people she wishes to rule. Rest assured, we have an explanation you likely haven't heard that not only ties perfectly with this video, but also tracks perfectly with her arc in the series.
In the next installment of this series, we will be taking a look at Season 2 and exploring what is actually making her such a dumb bitch. We pray to the old gods and to the new that you tell us your favorite stupid moment from our least favorite Targaryen in Season 1. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more content like this.
Or don't. We don't care.